Okay, not the best at doing these videos, but anyway, you can see here, this is a Mark II setup block. It's made for when you're going to be working on hammers and sears on a Mark II, Mark I, or even Mark III pistols, 2245s, doesn't matter. They use the same lock work. The block comes from a company called Power Customs. Old company, been around since back in the bullseye days in probably the 60s and 70s. You'll recognize this. It's a bushing and a magazine safety out of a Mark III. So that'll fit on the hammer pin here. This is a SEAR out of an early Mark III. This is a SEAR out of a newer Mark III. Best of my knowledge, these started showing up about the first quarter of 2015. And that's what will be in your Mark III today. Got a little cutout right there. This one's flush all the way across. I don't know if that'll show up there. Yeah, there you see that cutout. So, Ruger always used a different method. Excuse me. Of gauging depth of engagement on hammer and sear. So when you hammer, that's how they engage. When you pull the trigger, it pulls the sear away, the hammer flies forward. So we're going to set the hammer. Well, first we're going to do this. Let's set the sear on here. Okay, now when I push on the sear, this doesn't want to move anymore because I'm pushing against it. Now, this is the old SEAR, doesn't have the cutout. Watch this. I can drop the hammer right on there. Hammer moves. This doesn't move. Hammer moves. That's because the SEAR is spacing off of this washer face. People don't realize that when you put your tandem cross hammer delete bushing in your gun. It creates a lot more travel on your trigger. So guys that are picky about having what we call creep on a trigger, you know, long drag before it disengages, you're going to gain a lot more creep by putting that bushing in there, because that bushing doesn't utilize this washer face. The bushing will fall below the cut on the hammer, and what you'll end up with is a situation like this, what Ruger does today. They put the cutout. Now we'll push this on here. Okay, we'll get the thing set here, and we push against it, so this is stable. Now watch this. I push on this. Well, if I can get this to stay in place. So I push on this. Okay, now this doesn't want to move, but see, that moves. That's because the cutout, it now works like a traditional hammer and sear. The sear is bottoming out in the hammer. It's not gauged by this washer face anymore. So on the Mark II line, you would find different sized washer faces on those bushings. Hang on, I'll get a bushing. Here's some bushings. See, these are measured 435. That's the diameter of that washer. 432. Oh, I'm not in the film. 435, 432. That's the diameter of this washer on there. So if you wanted a crisper trigger, you'd put a bigger washered bushing in there, and that would move your sear farther out from the hammer. Now the thing is, when you start messing with all this stuff on these guns, you create a situation, your safety. Now that's one thing I don't have a pin for on this block. Well, no, I do. Hang on. Maybe. I got a Mark 1 safety. Yeah, we can do this. This pin would be longer, but we'll do this. I got to pull the bushing off. But anyway, your safety goes over the hammer. I mean the the SEAR. Fits on the hammer pin. And that's your safety. And when you start messing with all this lock work and changing engagement of the hammer and all that, eventually your safety gets a little questionable whether it's going to do its job, because it's made to lock over the SEAR like that. So there's not much play there. And whenever you start messing with the lock work, these parts stack up a little differently, and it just makes good sense to check your safety, because what can happen is, let's say you turn the safety on, you pull the trigger, and so now we've pulled the SEAR against the edge of the safety. Now, if your lock work is in such a condition that it puts the SEAR right on the cusp of falling off the edge of the hammer, as soon as you release the safety, then the SEAR flies off and the gun will fire. I've seen this happen before. A lot of guys dispute that, but I'm not the only one who's seen this happen. And it's a specific set of events that'll do it. But basically it would be, you put the safety on, you inadvertently pulled the trigger, realize, oh, my safety's on. You release the safety, bang, the gun fires as soon as you release the safety. So, little knowledge on the guns. A lot of people don't realize that it's that washer that spaces the SEAR from the hammer. Here's a old Mark II setup. Here we'll grab the old style SEAR. And once again, here's a Mark III hammer. There you go, same thing. It's pushing against there. If you can see, I'm pushing on my finger there. And there you go, hammer. So, on the old setups, the SEAR doesn't bottom into the hammer. The SEAR hits this washer or this mechanism. It's done that since 1949. When they came up with this cutout SEAR, it doesn't do that anymore. But these guns will all set up a little differently internally, which means the safeties are all going to be a little different acting. So when you start mixing and matching parts on these guns, check your safety. Make sure it will not fire when you release the safety if the trigger's been pulled.